Now I will start from my first day at the cave in Charanapaduka, where I was living with Mahavatar Babaji. Now, there was some peculiarities about Babaji. One is, normally he didn't eat food. I mean, he would eat. Rarely when somebody offered food, or sometimes when I cooked a little bit of food, he would eat. But generally he was not, I felt that he was not hungry really. He would eat for satisfaction of others. The other peculiarity was that I never seen him sleep. When I say sleep, lying down and sleeping. Any time I wake up, when I woke up and looked, he would be sitting straight, looking, sometimes eyes open, sometimes eyes closed. The maximum I have seen him rest is sometimes with his hands he would lean backwards on the cave or near a tree or something like that, but never full stretched, never sleeping. I have not seen him. And he never felt sleepy because of that. He walked almost, when we were walking 20 kilometers a day, and would not be tired at the end of it. There is something very peculiar which we have walked in so many places. And wherever he went, he had taught me how to collect dry firewood twigs and branches. He always carried an axe with him, small axe to cut the branches, and how to light the dhuni fire. Never did he stay in a place without a dhuni fire, which was part of the ritual of the Nath Sampradaya. Now, on the first day, he told me to go down to the village meaning the small settlement near the Badri temple, to a Marwadi's shop, and say that Babaji has asked for provisions. So I went, and that man said, I can bring the provisions to the cave to Babaji. I said, please, I will be punished. He has asked me to bring it, so you don't come, I will take it. So I took some provision, which basically some rice and a few other things. It is very difficult to cook things like dal in Badrinath because the air pressure is very, very low. So basically we did with rice and some aloo, some potatoes and things like that, some chilies. So I brought it. He taught me how to wash it, how to cut it, how to cook it. And when I had prepared the meal, I think for my satisfaction, he took a little bit and ate it and said, it's very nice. I knew that it is only for my satisfaction. I was myself not sure how good it was. Anyway, then that evening he started his lessons of teaching me about yoga, about the nadis, about the Shushumna, about the chakras, about the Upanishads, about the Gita. So many things, day by day, little by little. Each session would go around 1 hour or 1.5 to 2 hours, when we would sit and actually discuss the matter face to face, like in the Upanishads. If you read the Upanishads, you will see that the Rishi sits with his disciple and has a dialogue, samvad, which is a discussion. He is not told, this is what it is, you have to accept it. There is a discussion. Now after the discussion, one can ask questions and then absorb the knowledge which is given to one. This is the way I was taught throughout. It consisted of samvads, discussions and dialogues between him and me. Of course, he knew and I didn't. That is always there, that difference. Anyway, then one of these days, and I used to sleep in the cave, and he used to sit near the dhuni looking out. One of those days, he gave a big discussion. He talked about the fire. And he said, the fire that you see burning before you, which is Agni, which is one of the most important elements in the earth. And it is connected to the human being, because in the human being there is an inner fire which is in the area of the navel, the Manipura chakra, which when awakened, the inner energy which is called the Kundalini is awakened, by which the human being ascends from the lower level to the higher level of consciousness and finally reach freedom, which in yogic terms is called kaivalya, which means absolutely unconditional, fetterless, free existence, not bound by any desire whatsoever, which is in full happiness, because one is not seeking or craving for anything. To be free of even a single craving, like a craving to drink a cup of coffee or to smoke a cigarette itself, is a great freedom. Now, to live with no craving whatsoever, you can imagine what a wonderful freedom and blissful life it is. And for that, Babaji taught me that the inner fire, which is reflected in the outer fire, has to be kindled. He said that is the real Homa. He said the real Nachiketa Homa is the kindling of the inner fire in the Manipura chakra and not lighting the fire outside. He said lighting the fire outside, goldsmiths also do, blacksmiths also do to melt their iron, but what spiritual benefit do you get out of it? He said the inner fire has to be lit, which is in the Manipura chakra, and that is called the Nachiketas fire, discussed between Nachiketas and Yama in the great Upanishad called the Katha Upanishad. And then Babaji never said anything only theoretical. When he said something, he always gave a practical demonstration of it. He said the fire is a living thing, it's not a non-living thing. And he said, look at the fire for some time. So I fixed my attention on the fire which was lit. He fixed his attention. After a while, he uttered a few bijaksharas of Agni and raised his hand up like this. And I, with my own eyes, I saw the flame going straight up, even as tall as a tree which was in the background. And then when I was completely astounded, wondering what was happening, he turned his finger like this, and the tip of that turned and hit me in my navel, and it was as if my whole body was on fire. Something was burning inside. It was very hot, almost unbearable, but at the same time quite blissful. I cannot describe this more than this. And then I found the energy slowly traveling up and coming to the middle of my forehead, and I went into meditation. I remained in that meditation probably for the whole night, because next morning I found Babaji shaking me up and saying, go and brush your teeth and get some provision to cook, because you are hungry, not because he is hungry, you are hungry. So this was my first lesson, and it was my first kindling of the fire inside, which now I am 64, 63, has not gone off, that fire. It's still kindled inside. I mean, if you talk this to a psychiatrist or a he think that you're completely nuts, you've gone out with a rocker, but it is there, the fire burns inside. And it's not, because it's not a physical fire, it's the fire which also exhibits, which also manifests when a human being has desire, irresistible desire for something. Only thing is here, the desire fire has been converted into the fire that burns out all the impurities and the dross and takes one to the higher levels of consciousness. This is called the Kundalini fire, and this was my first experience with Babaji. A week later, one day Babaji said, today is your chutti, you are free to go where you want. You can go where you want. It's like a holiday for you. So I decided now in the Himalayas, in that area, where would you go? There only, if you go a little further, there is ice. Otherwise, you can go to the temple. I didn't want to go back to see the Ravalji. So I decided to wander around somewhere near the caves. Further up, 6-7 caves further up, I saw a cave in which the smell of incense was coming, Shambrani. So I went inside and I saw a very wrinkled old Buddhist monk sitting there. He had a prayer wheel in his hand, rotating, and he was keep chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum. It was going on, and there was incense burning there. So I went and prostrated, did namaskara and sat down. And after some time he said, I asked him, can you speak English? He said, speak Hindi? He said, yes. So we started talking a little bit. And then I asked him about Buddhism and about various things, and he gave me a lot of information on that. Then he suddenly said something which was quite extraordinary. When I asked him about in Tibetan yoga, the Tibetan lamas practice a certain thing called tummo. Tummo is a kind of pranayam with some visualizations where the inner heat in the system is generated. And they live in the coldest of climates and still don't feel cold because the body starts sweating when this fire is ignited in the navel, the inner fire. So this is called tummo. So when he discussed this to me, because he was wearing only one robe, so it was not very, and it was quite cold. Babaji had made sure that I used to wear woolen blankets which he had cut for a hole in the middle for the neck, and a cap and a turban and all that. He said, you will fall sick. So I said, that's fascinating. Can you teach me tummo? He said, it is not so important to learn tummo. You see, what have I attained? Nirvana by learning tummo? No, but I can control the temperature. Okay. Then he said something extraordinary. He said, that is not the same as that fire that touched your navel last week. So I said, how do you know? Because nobody knows except me and Babaji. So how does he know that the fire touched my navel last week? He said, I and your Babaji have a different mode of contact. We don't meet each other, but we keep in touch with each other. I said, how? He said, by the mind. You won't understand these matters. It takes some time. By and by, gradually you will begin to understand what it is. He said, I can give you a hint. When the mind becomes absolutely quiet and calm, and even though outwardly it seems to be ruffled because of circumstances, deep down when you meditate, if you see that it is very, very still and quiet and calm, such a mind immediately reflects the thoughts of people who are around you. Whether you want to take it or you don't want to take it, it is your business. You can cut it off if you like. But suddenly you will say, you will experience a thought which doesn't belong to you, and you can be sure that it is coming from someone in the room, from somewhere. He said, it is only a hint, but there are ways and means to practice and perfect the art of it. Again he told me, but it is not so important. The most important thing is to attain nirvana, which is freedom from all the bondages and conditionings of this world. So I lived with Babaji like that for some months in that cave in Charana Paduka. Once in a while going to crossing the river and going to Mauni Baba's cave. Mauni Baba's cave is on the way to the temple of Nilakanta in the Nilkant hills, which is on the other side of the Ganga. And whenever Babaji went and stayed in the cave, which is called Mauni Baba's cave, it has 3 layers. One cave is there. If you go down the steps, there is another cave. And if you go further down, there is a 3rd cave inside. But whenever Babaji lived in the cave, Mauni Baba used to go up to Nilkant and live there, so that he would be free to be there. And there was a brahmachari who used to serve us, look after us, bring water, clean the place, give me food. He didn't want food, and so on. And then from there we used to walk further up, sometimes on the banks of the Ganga through Lakshman Jhula, further up to Dev Prayag and back, and so on. On one of these trips, it was quite evening when we approached Vashishta Gufa. By the time we reached, we were not coming from the road, coming from those small paths on the banks of the Ganga, which are called by the locals Pagdandi Rastas. Pagdandi means you have to have a stick to move in that area. There are no buses, nothing, it's small paths. So we walked on that path and we came near Vashishta Gufa. So I told Babaji, so we'll spend the night at Vashishta Gufa, that Brahmachari is there. He said, no, we will spend the night at Arundhati cave. So that's the first time I saw or heard about the Arundhati cave. So I looked up, and from the Ganga you climb on rocks, and there is a small cave called Arundhati cave. It's still there, and only 2 people can sit or sleep in that. It's a very small cave. So we slowly climbed up, went to the Arundhati cave. Babaji said, gave me the axe and said, go and find some dry twigs to light the fire. So I went and got some twigs. He said, if you are hungry, you can go down to Vashishta Gufa, have some food from that brahmachari there and come up. So after gathering the food and lighting the dhuni, I went down and met Swamiji, and I said, Babaji is there. So he said, I will also come. He came and he bowed down, did namaskaram, and came back. So I stayed in the night there. Now you must understand, those days the forest area was quite large. Now much of it has depleted in Rishikesh and other areas. And wild elephants used to roam near Mauni Baba's cave, and in this Arundhati cave and Vashishta Gufa areas, leopards were very common at night. So Babaji always told me, don't go out at night unless you tell me. Don't go alone. So I had not encountered a leopard till then, but the warning was there, so I was careful. Now this Arundhati cave is a very, very long cave. It must be about 10 feet in length, maybe, not more than that, and about maybe 6 feet or 7 feet in width, becoming narrower as you go inside. And in front of that, on the mouth, Babaji built up the dhuni. I helped him to build up the dhuni, and we lit the fire, and he would sit there and meditate, and I was supposed to sleep inside. I would sleep inside with my feet towards him, and he would sit facing the dhuni and looking out. And below was the Ganga. Living in Arundhati cave, I had learned many ways to meditate, and one of them was, Babaji said, just sit and look at the river. Follow the river as it moves. Don't think of anything else. So that's open eye meditation. I learned several things living there. But what I want to tell you are 2 extraordinary incidents that happened to me during my stay in the Arundhati cave. 2 really extraordinary. One of them is so unbelievable that people wonder if it's fact or fiction, but you must remember that fact is stranger than fiction many times. All fiction is produced from fact, which is sometimes so strange that one doesn't even know if it is fact or fiction. And this happened one night. No, before that I will tell you the other story. One day I was sitting there and meditating. My attention was fixed in the Ajna Chakra, which is the middle of the forehead. It is also called Bhru Madhya, meditating. Now, from childhood, from my young age, I was very fond of masala dosa. Now, for some reason, when I was sitting and trying to meditate on Om and the Ajna Chakra, the only image that was coming was masala dosa. So, I felt that this nice smell of masala dosa. Somebody, maybe after many years of being deprived from natural food, that kind of food. So Babaji suddenly woke me up and said, are you meditating on the Ajna Chakra? I said, yes. Does Ajna Chakra look like masala dosa? I said, Babaji, I can't help it. This image is coming into my head. I cannot help it. He said, I think what you should do is to go tomorrow I will take you somewhere where you have as many masala doshas as you want and get rid of this craving. So the next day he takes me to, there is a Madras cafe in Rishikesh on this side, and gets 2 masala doshas which I finish in few minutes. The third also is ordered, but I can't eat it because I am already full. He said, "Are you satisfied with the masala dosa?" I said, "Yes." "Okay, now get rid of it." From that time, that inordinate desire and craving for that particular food item is dissolved from my mind. Now this is what is called the tantra way, the tantric way, where you satisfy your urges temporarily so that you know what it is and you are free of it. Because many a time, because we have not satisfied that urge, it keeps on bothering us, and as we move forward in the spiritual field, it becomes a big obstacle. So the tantra system is bhogo yogayate, which means, Babaji taught me this, means enjoy, understand and then let go. The problem comes when you cannot let go, all the time enjoying and not being able to let go. So therefore, for such practices, a guru or a teacher is required. Otherwise, one may fall into the bottomless pit and always get stuck there in the pool. You cannot come out. So this was a wonderful experience which I had with Babaji. It also confirmed my understanding that he understood every passing thought that flickered through my mind, even for a second. Of course, he didn't say it, but I knew it. And therefore, I was learning how to keep my mind free from thoughts which are disturbing. Because I thought if I get it, he will immediately sense it. It was like someone watching you with a microscope. I knew that he wouldn't punish me for it, but I knew that my heart was an open book to this great being. And because of that, I was guided properly and I was able to advance myself spiritually. Now the second experience, which is really unbelievable, this is not unbelievable, but that one is really unbelievable. One day, one night, I was sleeping in the cave and Babaji was sitting in front of the dhuni, meditating. He was sitting steady with his eyes open. I could see him in that state. Now I was lying down behind the cave, at the end of the cave, with my eyes closed. I was fast asleep. Somewhere in the middle of the night, I heard a sound which was like a thunderclap, as if there is going to be rain, a heavy thunderclap, very, very loud, like an explosion. So I look up and I see something like the moon on the other side of the skyline, and that it is lit from inside just like the moon, and it is moving forward, and as it moves forward it is growing bigger and bigger and bigger. So I wake up fully. I am completely alert, wondering what is this thing that is coming. And the whole thing comes, it becomes so big, almost this big, and lands right on the dhuni with another thunderclap so loud that I almost am shaken out of my consciousness actually. And I am looking at Babaji and wondering what is happening out of fear. And then very slowly, there is a beautiful perfume like thing wafting from there. Very slowly, this round globe thing opens. It opens like as if it is 2 doors which are opening. And inside that, I see a very, very strange sight. Inside that sits a big cobra-like structure. It's like a cobra. It's huge. It has a hood. It is much bigger than any snakes that we see. And it is colored like, it's like as if it is made of glass, and it is colored electric blue. Like the sparks that you see when you strike 2 wires together, complete electric blue and transparent. And it's saying something which I cannot follow. It's like hissing sound. And Babaji is sitting there looking at it. And it seemed to me as if there is a conversation going on between this object and Babaji. And I am lying there shivering with fright, not knowing what to do. Either this is a dream, but it cannot be a dream, but I feel I am awake, or it is something which is in my brain. So I am either going mad, completely crazy, or this is real. If it is real, what is it that I am seeing before me? Something that looks like a cobra, which is made of blue, deep violet blue glass, and it is shining and it is making some kind of a noise which is like a hiss almost. And Babaji seems to be communicating with it because he is nodding his head and he is showing his hands, and then suddenly he turns to me at the cave and says, "Idhar aao." So shivering with great fear, I go towards the dhuni where this is. Then he says, "Bend down and do namaskaram, do pranams." So I go from far and do namaskaram to something, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. And the snake, that snake-like thing with its hood, bends down and touches my head. And as it touches my head, I feel a certain thrill going through my system. And for a moment, I understand that this is not a thing from the earth, but something come from a realm about which we have no idea. And then the thing closes, there is another thunderclap, and it's gone. Gone meaning it goes up, becomes smaller and disappears. Now, this looks like a science fiction story, but this is my experience of what I had in the Arundhati cave. In the morning, I asked Babaji, "What is this that I saw? Who is this?" He says this comes from a realm which is called Nagaloka, and this is the person who is the head of that world which is called Nagaloka. And I said, "We have only read of Nagaloka in Puranas or in some other textbooks, but do it really exist?" He said, "Did you see what you saw or you didn't?" I said, "I saw." "If you see it and if you experience it, you better believe it," he said. And then later on, many days later, we had various discussions on different realms. And what I remember very clearly, he said, it is the height of arrogance that the human being thinks that this little speck of dust which we call the Bhuloka, the earth, is the only place where living beings are. He said that is the height of arrogance of the human being to think so. So one day, while sitting outside the cave at Charan Paduka with Babaji, he suddenly turned around and said, "Now tomorrow we are going to leave for Tolingmat on the way to Kailash." I was very excited because, as I said earlier, there was the old Buddhist Lama who was living in one of the caves in Charan Paduka. He had mentioned about Tolingmat to me. He said that across the border into Tibet, not too far from the Indian border, there was a famous Buddhist monastery called the Tolingamat. I was very excited because I had always thought of walking into Tibet and seeing monasteries and sadhus and lamas there. So Babaji said, "Yes, we are going tomorrow." So all preparations were made. In the morning, we went to see the Ravalji. Now I was waiting for what the reaction would be, because the Ravalji had first of all discouraged me from being there, saying that there are no genuine sadhus or no genuine, he had not heard of any genuine yogis, and that I was wasting my time looking for a guru and so on. So I thought, what would be the reaction when Babaji meets the Ravalji? So we went. I was surprised because the Ravalji stood up and prostrated before Babaji and said, "Oh, this young gentleman has found you." And Babaji said, yes, I have found him. He said, yeah, I was discouraging him from falling into the hands of false gurus and frauds. Babaji said that was a good thing to do. So, but the most surprising aspect of this was that Babaji was speaking in Malayalam, and that also in the northern Malayalam accent, northern side of Malayalam, which the Ravalji also spoke, from a Nambudri family from Payanur, which is in the northern end of Kerala. They spoke for some time, and then all preparations were made. Ravalji said, we are making all preparations, Babaji, don't worry, and so on. We also provided with Nepalese man, I think his name was some Bahadur, I can't remember that, not Tegh Bahadur, some Bahadur. Anyway, so this man was supposed to accompany us, and Marwadi merchant provided us with tents and horses. So we started out armed with a gas stove and kerosene oil and so on. But before we did that, while we were going, I sat down quietly, and Babaji was standing up and looking at the river. I asked him, Babaji, are you from Kerala? Are you a Malayali? So, are you a Malayali? Babaji said, why do you ask? I said, it's because you are speaking in perfect Malayalam with Nambudri. He said, no, I am not from Kerala. Oh, then he said, so you must be thinking the same which most people think, that Babaji must be omniscient, he knows any language in the world. He said, that is not the case. He said, there is no human being on this earth, born of a father and mother, biologically, who is omnipresent, omnipotent or omniscient. He said, there are always limitations, there is no such thing. I said, then how do you know the Malayalam which you are talking, since you are not from Kerala? He said, but there are ways in which you can connect to somebody else's brain and understand temporarily what that person is thinking of, tune into somebody's brain and use his knowledge. That's all one can do. Nobody can be omniscient. So I said, okay. I said, that is not a full explanation. I still want to ask you, where are you from? He laughed and said, we'll discuss that later. Anyway, so the next day we started off. Babaji, the Nepalese Gurkha, I started calling him simply Bahadur. So Bahadur and myself, plus 2 horses, one for carrying the tents and other things, and one for emergencies, some cooking pots and gas stove and so on, with good supply of drinking water, which was put in pots and tied on both sides of the podi. Started off. Now, this path which we were taking is not frequented by most people who go to Kailash. It's the old route, which is supposed to have been the route taken by Sri Rama when he visited Kailash in the ancient times. So now hardly anybody goes. Anyways, about 35 kilometers from Mana, you come across the Indian border from where Tibet starts. It's all controlled now by the Indo-Tibetan border police. That time there was not much of a police or army presence there. Anyway, so we went up to Vashishta Gufa, camped at Vashishta Gufa for the night, and next morning we started off towards Kailash. Now the path to take is to follow the course of the Saraswati river. There is no other way you can find out. Babaji apparently knew the path, and this Bahadur who came with us, he said he had once travelled with some merchants trading in Tibet, across Tibet. So we passed the Saraswati river, we came to a place called Keshav Prayag, where the Saraswati meets Alkananda, and then from there we started. There was no path actually, we had to climb over rocks, many places. and walk along. River followed us throughout. It was beautiful. And then the sights of the Himalayas are something that's so thrilling. At a distance I could see the Nila Parvat, the blue mountain. We have Nilagiris here, but they are not half as blue as the Nila Parvat. And snow-covered other peaks jutting out from the scene. And nothing but snow all around, hardly any vegetation, and becoming colder and colder day by day. In about 13 days or so, traveling this way, camping at places where there was a small clearing, where this Bahadur used to clear up the snow and the ice and pitch the tent and cook food for us, we proceeded. Babaji, of course, as usual, never slept, but I slept soundly throughout the journey because I was dead tired. Meditation, of course, every now and then Babaji would wake me up from meditation saying, this is not Turiya, this is Sushupti, deep sleep. Anyway, so we passed a wonderful time. I had some discussions also with him during that period. Part of it I have written in the autobiography, but not the whole thing. One was about the Nath Panth to which he belonged. And the other was his connection with Sri Guru Babaji, who was his Guru. So finally we came to the Mana Pass, the famous Mana Pass. We crossed the Mana Pass. It took us a whole day to go because the Mana Pass is 18,000 miles above sea level. So we had to cross it. While we were crossing, there was a terrible storm. Somehow we managed, although I was shivering. The Gurkha had a lot of experience in that, so he was fine. He wore a thick coat, but Babaji, as usual, wore only the small cloth which he normally wore, bare-bodied. And I was wearing thickly clothed in all kinds of woolen things and a woolen cap and a muffler. Babaji said, you better wear it, otherwise you will fall sick. So we went. Finally, we cleared the Mana Pass and came down to the Tibetan side in about 2 days. Suddenly we found that the temperature had become not so severe and the earth was reddish, a lot of red mud there, and people were growing small little herbs and little bit of vegetable and all that. In about 4 days, halting in the night and so forth, we reached Tolingmat. Now this Tolingmat is situated in Tibet. One of the most important features of the Tolingmat is that it has a Buddha whose head touches the roof of the monastery. It's a huge Buddha. And also around Buddha in that monastery there are so many other Hindu gods and goddesses, Bhadrakali and Hanuman and other Devis, and you name them, all the Dasha Mahavidyas are there. But the Lamas only do puja to all these. And there was a head Lama who is known as the Rinpoche, who welcomed Babaji as if you knew him for a long time, and asked us to stay and be their guests at the monastery. But Babaji never stayed in anywhere like that, so we had to pitch a tent and stay just outside the monastery. The tent was quite comfortable for about 3-4 people, so 3 of us were there. Horses were tied outside, and we spent the night. The night I had a wonderful discussion with Babaji about various things. One of them was that the Lamas of Tolingmat believed that originally Badrinath was in Tolingmat, and since it was inaccessible to most people, later on it was shifted to the place where it is now. Of course, the Lama believed that Badrinarayan is a form of Buddha because he sits in Padmasan, but that may be his belief, we are not sure. I asked Babaji about this. He said we don't enter into such controversies. Sufficient to say that if you have a religious bent of mind, if you lead a good life and if you practice meditation, that's sufficient. It doesn't matter whether Buddha is Narayana or Narayana is Buddha. Don't get into these controversies. So there was no more discussion on that subject. Anyway, spent some time there, and then I also saw some very strange sight. There are these tall Tibetan men who come from the province of Kham. If you write in English, it can be spelled as Kham, Kham district. They're very tall people, and they are usually messengers who take messages from one monastery to another. Now these people had with them long sticks, which is like a pole they use for pole vault, and when they carried messages, they used to do a certain breathing exercise, hit the pole on the ground like a pole vault, and travel quite a distance before landing. So this is why they were appointed as messengers, because they had learned the art of almost flying with the stick. This is the nearest levitation that I have seen in my life, apart from the magic tricks that are shown on stage. Anyway, so I saw them pushing, taking a deep breath and moving quite a distance before again putting the pole down. These were the messengers of the monasteries. Anyway, so after spending about 4 days and having various discussions with the lamas about Buddhism and so on, Babaji said, now we can start for Kailash. So we started off. We had reached Tolingmat, and from there we had to go through another village. I think it was called Damal or something. So we reached there in about 6 days. Altogether, we camped there at that little village. Altogether, we had travelled around 21 days, starting from Mana, Badrinath. Now we halted there for the night in a tent. And that night, I had such a serious fever. That the temperature was so high that I started getting convulsions. So Babaji said, no Kailash for you this time. We have to go back. I said, but Babaji, I wanted to go to Kailash. He said, you might have wanted to go to Kailash. You will go to Kailash after many, many years with a big group of people. But this time you will travel from the Nepal side. So I gave up. Anyway, I was very ill. I had high temperature. I was shivering. In fact, I thought I was having what you call, when you have high fever, hallucinations. Because I was lying in the, I was there sick for at least 4 days. I was lying in the tent on my little wooden plank, when suddenly I saw the tent door open. Now the Lama was giving me medicines for the last 4 days, but this didn't seem to have any effect. I was still having high temperature. I saw somebody coming inside from the tent, from the opening door of the tent. Now this person who came from the door didn't look like a human being. He looked more like, what shall we compare with? He looked like a gorilla, something like a gorilla. I couldn't see clearly because the only light inside the tent was a small kerosene lamp which was lit, hurricane lamp which was lit by Bahadur. So in this faint light, all I could see was there was this thing looking like a monkey or a gorilla, but big size, like a human being. As it walked in, and it was making a peculiar whining, thin pitched, sharp pitched voice, like that kind of sound. And it or he kept coming towards. When it passed the light, the hurricane lamp, I noticed that it had body was full of fur and there were no clothes. And the fur was kind of light, dark cream colored fur. It came straight towards me where I was lying. I was really paralyzed with fear. It looked at me and again made that whining noise. My mind went back to some comic books where the Yeti comes in the Himalayas and tries to kill people and so on. So I was paralyzed with fear. But it did nothing of the sort. It came near me and pushed something into my mouth. Some very gooey stuff like chewed chewing gum or melted chewing gum or some very, very sweet stuff in my mouth, pushed it in with its finger and then ran out. When it was running out, the Bahadur came running in saying, "Mountain man, pahadi admi. He came running inside. He was also very frightened. He said, "Are you all right?" I said, "I am all right." And I was chewing that stuff. I swallowed it. Whole night I could not sleep because all the time I was looking at the entrance to the tent, wondering when the creature was going to come. Anyway, to cut the long story short, in about 2 hours' time, I fell asleep without my knowledge, unconsciously. And when I woke up in the morning, there was no temperature, no fever. I was perfectly all right. So Babaji said, "Okay, we pack up. We are going back to Badrinath." I said, "Babaji, I am all right now." He said, "I know you are all right. We are going back." So most of the time on the way back, I was sitting on the horse and going. So then I asked Babaji, "Babaji, do you think what I saw was a Yeti?" He said, "Let's not have a discussion. Nobody is going to believe you. Most people don't believe in its existence. And if you say you had high fever when you saw it, they would think that you were having some kind of a hallucination. So don't discuss the subject." I said, "No harm if I say I saw it." He said, "That is left to you." So we came back to Badrinath it took us, I think, around 18 days, much less time than we took to go there. Around 18 days we were back at Badrinath and back to the cave at Charanapaduka. After I reached there one morning, I went to see the Ravalji. I told Babaji, "I am going to see the Ravalji." He said, "Go." So I went to Ravalji and after saying namaskara and all that, I said, "How do you know Babaji?" Because you were talking as if you were familiar with him. He said, "Well, I know him as a genuine yogi who lives in these areas, but I don't know anything more about him. But my forefathers have said 3 successors, and before that my father has said that they have also met him. So we don't know how old he is, although he looks around 35. He's a great yogi. You are lucky that he found you, because generally I have heard that he did not accept any disciples. So you are very lucky." So I said, "Okay." I said, "Then is he from Kerala? What do you suspect?" He said, No, I don't think he's from Kerala." He was talking Malayalam. He said, "That is, great yogis can do what they want." So I said, "So you believe in great yogis? Because you are discouraging me. There is no." He said, "I discouraged you because you don't fall into the wrong hands. There are so many ganja sadhus around here. There are so many people who are very learned and scholarly who pretend to be great yogis. So I was only trying to help you out." So I said, "All right." So he said, "Since you are going, please take some prasad with you and go back to the cave. And if you tell Babaji that it is Badri Narayan prasad, he will also eat it. Otherwise, I know that he doesn't usually eat." So I said, "All right." So I thanked him, took the prasad and went back to the cave. Now this Charanapaduka, it's a very interesting place. After many years, both things came true. One is I took a whole group of people and went to Kailash. 2, whenever we went to Badri or Kedar with a group, we used to go to Charanapaduka and go near the caves and meditate and walk around. Many of our friends have sat with me and meditated at Charanapaduka because I believe that there is a strong presence of Sri Guru Babaji in that place. This is the importance of Charanapaduka. The Jains also come there because for them it is a holy place. One of their Tirthankaras has come there, maybe Parashvanath, I am not sure, and has done tapasya there. So they have 2 footmarks which they consider to be the Charana Padukas of their Tirthankaras. So many Jains come there on pilgrimage. If you move a little further up, the whole right side is dotted with caves. If you go further down, there is a glade where horses, you will see wild horses grazing there. It's completely green. It's a very beautiful place. Now, those who would want to go there, the best way to do would be to go to Badrinath, walk along the road that approaches Badrinath, but in the reverse direction, opposite direction, and then you find steps going up the hills from there on the right side. If you stand there and look straight on the opposite direction, you will see the Nilakant Parvat. You will see a photograph of the Nilakant Parvat on the cover page of my autobiography, especially when the sun rises. It's a beautiful sight to see because only the top becomes golden and the rest is all white and beautiful. It's a sight for poets, for artists, for people who enjoy nature to go to such places. Even if you are not religiously inclined and you don't want to go for a pilgrimage, I think it's a great idea to visit Badri, Kedar, especially in the season when the snow has not fully melted. You can see these beautiful peaks when the sun rises and the sun sets, and the whole atmosphere is so different that you would automatically get a meditative feeling. And if you sit down and meditate, there is the influence of these great beings around. Now, having said that, while staying at Charana Paduka, I used to take short walks with Babaji towards Vyasa Gufa and towards what is known as Swarga Arohini. Swarga Arohini is little beyond the Vyasa Gufa. That's supposed to be the place that goes on to Alkapuri from where Alakananda starts. And the Puranas say that when the Pandavas, after the Kurukshetra war and after Yudhishthira laid down gave up his kingdom and decided to walk out, having put his son in place, all the Pandavas walked up the same route from Mana and continued to go to the Bhimtal near Saraswati river and walk towards the, what is it called, Alkapuri. On the way, there is a spot from where Yudhishthira is supposed to have fallen. Fallen means where the Purana says where he was lifted up into heavens. Now, therefore, that place is called Swarga Arohi. That means a place from where he went off to Swarga. There's an interesting story. Yudhishthira had a dog, a pet dog, which was very dear to him. So the story is that when the chariot came, when the Pushpa Vimana came to take Yudhishthira up to Swarga, he said, "No, I cannot come alone. I have to take my dog." So he said, "But the dog has not done the punya that you have done." He said, "Either the dog comes with me or I don't go." So finally, the pilots of the Pushpa Vimana had to agree to take the cargo of the dog also along. So the dog was also booked to Swarga. Interesting story, because Yudhishthira, you will notice, was a great king who, after the Kurukshetra battle, when he became the king, he decided that he would not rule the kingdom. He was very unhappy. He said, "What is the use of a kingdom where so many people have been killed? So many of my relatives are dead. What kind of a kingdom should I rule over?" In spite of he being told by his brothers that it is not your fault that they were killed, he insisted that he would not rule the kingdom. He would rule only as long as his son is ready to take over, and then he moved off into the mountains to the Badrinath and Kedar towards his complete freedom. Therefore, he is referred to in the ancient Puranas as Dharmaraja, the king of Dharma. How many kings do we see nowadays? Who would want to give up his seat or his kingdom? It's as if they put Fevicol on the seats when they sit down and they cannot get up. So these are the great kings who are not only rulers but also great saints, people whose mind had expanded and become spiritual. Now I am going to tell you about my visit with Babaji to the Valley of Flowers. It's a beautiful valley of flowers, which has been so much nowadays in the modern daily news, because lots of tourists have started going to the Valley of Flowers, and then from there to a place called Hemkund Sahib, which is now considered to be the holy place for the Sikhs, although everyone can go there. First we will start with the Valley of Flowers. So one day Babaji said, now we will start for the Valley of Flowers. Now, he used to make fun of me saying that there are roller skates on your feet, you can't stay in one place. But actually he had super speed roller skates on his feet. He could not stay for more than 4 days in one place, he would start off. So he said, we'll go to the Valley of Flowers. So naturally the only mode of transport with Babaji was walking. So we walked from Badrinath. Took 2 days to come, 2-3 days to come to Pandukeshwar. Then from Pandukeshwar we walked on to a place called Govind Ghat. In Govind Ghat, from ancient times there has been a small Gurudwara, which is basically a tent. It's a tent. Now they have built it and made it into a very big building, but in those days it was only a tent Gurudwara. And there was one Ragi. Ragi is the word used for the Pujari people who look after the Gurudwara among the Sikhs. They also read the Guru Granth Sahib, which is the holy book of the Sikhs, in a particular raga, so they are called Ragis. So there was this gentleman. So I went to him and I stayed for 2-3 days in the Gurudwara. One very interesting thing about a Gurudwara, it's good for everybody to know, is that in any Gurudwara, in any part of India, even abroad, if you have a visa to go, so that you can go and stay in a Gurudwara for 3 days, and you will also get boarding and lodging. Food also will be given to you for 3 days free of charge. Nobody will ask you what religion you belong to, where are you coming from. 3 days is allowed. If you want to stay for more than 3 days, then you will have to get special permission. So the kitchen, which is called the langar, is open all the time. Anybody who goes is supposed to be fed, which is part of the Sikh religion. So I went to Govind Ghat and stayed in the Gurudwara with the Ragi. We got very friendly. He taught me many things about the Sikh religion. Actually, when I came back, he became so friendly. He said, you must go to the Akali Takht in Amritsar and become a Sikh. I said, I am not ready to become a Sikh. I only want to study about the Sikh religion. Anyway, so from him I found out the route, how to go to, that was later. Babaji was with me, so there was no problem. So both of us stayed in the Gurudwara. And I also found that the Ragi was very respectful of Babaji. Whenever he saw him, he used to call him as Mahan and Guru and so on, which the Sikhs rarely use, because for them their Gurus are only their Gurus starting with Guru Nanak to Guru Gobind Singh. From there we went to a place called Ghangriya. That is the next stop. In Ghangriya, this beautiful river flowing under the bridge. It's a very interesting place. Very few hotels are there now, but in those days there was nothing. But there was a sadhu, Bairagi sadhu, belonging to the Juna Akada, who had a little kutir there. So Babaji knew him, or he knew Babaji. So we spent about 2 nights at Ghangriya with him. He would light the dhuni and sit and talk. But he was a sadhu who, many of the Juna Akada sadhus, they smoke the chilam, which is the hashish or ganja or whatever you want to call it. But otherwise he was perfectly all right, but this habit he had. When he offered it to me, I said, I don't use this stuff. So he said, yeah, I know, you're Babaji's disciple. You're all Raj Yogis, you don't require this, things like that. We spent some time there. Then he said, why don't you ask Babaji to give you Sri Vidya? I said, Babaji gives me what he wants. I never ask him for anything. He said, no, but you should ask, it will help you. So I said, I will see if there is the right opportunity, then I will ask him. And then anyway, so from there we proceeded to the left. Now from Gangria there are two roads. The left road goes to the Valley of Flowers, and the right one, which is quite a stiff climb, goes to Hemkund Sahib. So first we went to the Valley of Flowers. Valley of Flowers is the most beautiful thing you can imagine. It's as if there are different flowers. I think most flowers in the world are there, and they're all in different patches. It is as if somebody is doing gardening, but there are no gardeners. It's a natural thing. One stretch you will find certain flowers, another stretch you will find certain flowers. So it's like a patchwork, colored patchwork of flowers. You should go in the right season actually. I can't remember, it's probably August, September or something like that, when the flowers are in full bloom. And there are some flowers which give such a beautiful odd smell, perfume, that you get half intoxicated by the smell of the perfume. So it's a completely a place out of this world. And very often you see botanists going around from foreign countries trying to see which species these flowers are, because it seems there are flowers in the Valley of Flowers which are nowhere else in India except perhaps in Switzerland or some other exotic place. Babaji took me around and I was extremely surprised when I found that, like speaking Malayalam to the Ravalji, he knew every flower, its botanical name, its source, its species, its genus, which I don't know, so I cannot explain it to you. He said this is called Edelweiss. He said this is called the blue something, I don't know. So he had such a knowledge of botany and flowers and nature that it's mind-boggling. You cannot imagine a human being with so much understanding of so many things put together. Anyway, then he took me to a place of a cliff from where in 1941, I believe, a botanist, a lady botanist from abroad, from Europe, fell down and died while looking for some species. It still made us a plaque with her name. I can't remember the name now. I have mentioned it in my autobiography. So the thing is, I never keep a diary. I have never recorded anything in a piece of paper. But when I started writing the autobiography, every time I sat and wrote, all the information used to flow very naturally and come. But now if you ask me the names, I can't remember. I can read it from the autobiography, but I cannot remember offhand. Anyway, so then Babaji led me to a place where there is a lovely little cave surrounded by hills. He said he and Sri Guru have come and sat there and meditated very often. It's such a cozy and wonderful place that suddenly you are cut off from the cold, extreme cold around. And I found that my meditation was proceeding in a different direction than normal. There was a kind of half sleep kind of feeling when you sat down, floating kind of feeling. So when I expressed this to Babaji that this meditation is quite different, it's like falling asleep but not asleep, but very pleasant. He said that is because of the smell coming from some exotic flower around that is creating this kind of effect on my brain. Anyway, then we came back to Gangria, spent the night again in this Juna Akada Sadhu's place, and then the next day morning we started off going to Hemkund Sahib. We decided to do the whole stretch in one day. It is quite a tough climb. Normally people stop for a short while at some place which I forget the name, and then go the next day and come back. We decided to go the whole hog, completely go the same day, climb up and reach Hemkund Sahib. So we travelled. Travelled means walked, trekked, and I found that there were, even in those days, hundreds of Sikh pilgrims travelling up Hemkund Sahib, everyone saying Sat Sri Akal, Vaheguru, Vaheguru in going up. And in many points they would set up small tents and distribute food to the pilgrims. Okay. Anyway, finally, after trekking for a whole day, by evening we reached Hemkund Sahib. Now the Hemkund Sahib, the name Hemkund means the lake of ice, Hemkund, and it's actually a lake of ice. There is a small portion where you can see the water, the rest is all frozen, and you are surrounded by these beautiful snow-clad mountains on all sides wherever you look. And there were some really religious Sikh pilgrims who were jumping into the water to have a bath. I asked Babaji, should we have a dip? He said, are you crazy? You get sick. So I abstained from going into the lake. But it's a beautiful lake, beautiful sight, and it's so quiet and calm that the mind goes into a meditative state very, very naturally. We went to the Gurudwara. There's also a temporary little Gurudwara which was a tent, and had hot khichdi and papad, that's what I remember. And then from there, Babaji said, 4 kilometers beyond, 4 or 5 kilometers, there is an old Lakshman temple which is abandoned and nobody was doing any pujas or anything there. He said, let's go to this temple and spend the night for 2-3 nights and meditate and come back. I said, all right. So we went. It is a complete small little temple, totally dilapidated. There's an image which they claim to be the image of Lakshmana. That's the only temple for Lakshmana, I think, anywhere individually. And the idol was looking very dirty and unattended and unlooked after. So Babaji said, let's clean it. So we fetched some water from the nearby. There are waterfalls here and there, tiny, tiny waterfalls coming, very beautiful. Took some water in the Kamandalu and got it nicely cleaned, and we spent the night there. All the 3 nights we had a beautiful meditation. Babaji explained to me the different sects that belong to the Nath Panth, and how many Nath Panth ashramas or mathas are there in India now, starting with Gorakhpur and so on. And we had a very, very useful time, apart from the beauty and the meditative excellence of that place. The story is, somewhere in his writings, Guru Gobind Singh, who is the last Guru of the Sikhs, has said that in his previous birth, some previous birth, he had come to Hemkund Sahib and meditated in that little place where the present Lakshman temple is there. This is the story, which is why all the Sikhs go to Hemkund Sahib. From that, another legend has sprung up, that Guru Gobind Singh in his previous life was also Lakshman. So we cannot authenticate these stories, these are our popular beliefs. But the fact is that there is an old Lakshman temple in Hemkund Sahib, and Hemkund Sahib is one of the most beautiful places where one can go and meditate. But unfortunately, nobody can stay there for more than a day or two, because it is extremely cold, and in any case only 3 or 4 months in a year. After that there is no Gurudwara, nothing there, everybody winds up and comes down, because the whole place is completely covered with snow. It is 15,500 or so feet above sea level. This is Hemkund Sahib. Anyway, so we came back, again spent the night in Ghangriya with the sadhu, and then walked to Govind Ghat, from Govind Ghat to Pandukeshwar, and spent some time there. In the Pandukeshwar is the temple where the Pandavas are supposed to have halted on their way to Badrinath. So we spent some time there, and then we decided, Babaji decided, that we would go to the Pancha Kedars. Now, most people know only of one Kedar, which is Kedarnath. Thing is, that is the most popular of the Kedars where people go, and it's the most famous, and of course it is the biggest. But there are other Kedars which are, including Kedarnath, they are called Pancha Kedars. So there are 4 more Kedars. One of them is Maheshwar. The other is Rudranath. The third is Tunganath, and the fourth, can't remember right now the name. Anyway, there are these 4 Kedars. So Babaji said, now we are visiting the 4 Kedars, and then finally we will go to Kedarnath. I had never visited Kedarnath before. It was not, we hadn't traveled to that area till then. So we started off from Pandukeshwar, walking along, taking a right turn, and then continuing to walk. We passed many small villages, and in the evening we reached, I think it was Maheshwar. This is the problem, the names seem to escape. Anyway, one of the Kedars, let's say, we reached there. But on the way, the scene was so beautiful. No, we halted in between in a small village where the village head came to welcome Babaji. So I knew that he must be very well known in that area. He has travelled a lot. So finally we came there. I think it was in Maheshwar before that. Next day we walked on to Maheshwar, where again in the small village we were met by the village head, the Sarpanch, who came with a lot of followers saying, Babaji has come, and they all prostrated, brought food, brought water, brought flowers, wild flowers. And Babaji showed me many of those trees there. He said they are all herbal in content, and they can be made into important Ayurvedic and Siddha medicines. So he showed me all around. And here and there you saw beautiful green and blue lakes, and the villages were so simple. They were worshipping in little gram devatas everywhere, and offered food to whoever passed that way, because hardly anybody came that way. It was a Pagdandi Rasta, there are no motorable roads anywhere. Another interesting thing I found was there is an Ayurvedic gum, a resin called Shilajit, which is used in medicines. I saw for the first time Shilajit coming out of certain rocks. It's a kind of a mineral-like thing. Babaji showed me this is Shilajit. This is the source of the Ayurvedic medicine, usually used for Kaya Kalpa, to rejuvenation. Anyway, so we passed and spent some time in Maheshwar. Maheshwar, there was a priest who lived in the village. So he came and he did puja for the Shivling there. It's a very simple Shivling with a stone granite structure around. Now in these beautiful places, the ceramic tiles have not yet reached. So the temples are very beautiful. They don't look like bathrooms, because no ceramic tiles and glazed tiles have ever reached there. It's still made of granite and rock. It's very beautiful. Anyway, so from in Maheshwar, we spent the night, and we were on our way to Rudranath the next day. So on the whole, by the time we reached Maheshwar, it would have taken us about 4 days, I think, 4.5 days. Then we walked towards Rudranath. Now Rudranath is again one of the most important of the Panchakedars. There the linga is very small, the temple is completely dilapidated, there is no puja being performed, there is nobody in sight except a village which is 20 kilometers away. So we went, and it took us about 4 days or 5 days to reach from there. to Rudranath. On the way, while we were at Madhmaheshwar, the village Sarpanch said that one Yogiji Maharaj who used to live here has now shifted to Rudranath. So if you see him, please offer our prostrations to him. He told Babaji. So I asked Babaji, who is this great Yogiji Maharaj? He said, there is a direct disciple of Sri Guru Babaji who is my Guru Bhai, and he is also senior to me in a way. He is from the south and he lives, he used to live for many years in Madhmaheshwar. Now he is shifted to Rudranath. So he said probably we will meet him in Rudranath. So I said, where is he from? He said he is from the south. So where is he from the south? He said he used to live for many years in a place called Tenkashi, which I knew. It's near Chengota side, Tenkashi, where there is a waterfall also, beautiful waterfall. So I don't know his name, but people used to refer to him as Tenkashi Siddhar. He is supposed to have lived there for many years, and then Babaji told him, his Guru Babaji, told him to shift to Madhmaheshwar and then to Rudranath. So I was very excited. I thought I'll see one more great yogi who is Babaji's Guru Bhai. Anyway, we travelled. Now, before reaching Rudranath, we halted for the night in one place where there is a lot of dilapidated temples and no village, nothing. So Babaji said we can't walk today. It is about quite dark, so we'll have to go the next day to Rudranath and we can reach there by morning next day. So I said, all right. So we halted in that place and I was thinking, what about food for the night? I was just thinking in my mind. Now in Rudranath, there is in this village where we stayed, a lot of dilapidated, broken down structures. So Babaji said we can use one of these. As we approached a place which had like dharamshalas, which means granite pillars with a granite roof covered on all three sides. In front of that, suddenly we found there is a fire burning, dhuni. So I said to Babaji, there is a dhuni here, there must be somebody. He said, yeah, there must be. Who comes here? He was himself surprised. Normally he never used to get surprised about anything. As soon as we got in, from inside comes that Tenkashi Siddhar. I guessed it was him. A dark, very dark man, with short and well built, with a lot of ashes on his face, with vibhuti. He comes out and greets Maheshwarnath Babaji. They have a greeting in the Nath Panth called Alak Niranjan. So he says, Alak Niranjan. Babaji shocked. He says, oh, we thought we are going to find you in Rudranath. He said, yeah, I know. I was trying to keep your thoughts away from my mind. Otherwise, you would have discovered me long ago. This was a discussion. He said, come in. So we went inside. He asked me, you are from the south? He said, you are from Trivandrum. I said, yes. So Babaji has adopted you as your disciple. He said, before that I must tell you. So since Tenkashi Siddhar was senior to Maheshwarnath Babaji, as soon as he saw him, he tried to do pranams to him. He did not allow. He said, Mahesh, you don't have to do this to me. So he didn't allow him to do that. Babaji told me, do pranams. So I did pranams. Then he said, from Trivandrum. I said, yes. Trivandrum is the border of Tamil Nadu. I said, yes. You know Tamil? பேச தெரியும் சார், எழுத தெரியாது, வாசிக்க தெரியாது, பேச சரி, oh, very nice. He was very happy. Vaa, he said, vanga, vanga. So he took us all inside and he told me, this great man never accepts disciples. Usually you are a lucky fellow that he has taken you under his care. So we had a long chat. Then he said, this is your greatest surprise. I have made very good sambar rice and some puriyal for you. So I sat down and for the first time after so many years, 2 years, I had lovely South Indian meal sitting with Tenkashi Siddhar. It was more than the talk. I think I was more impressed and affected by that food. Then we sat down and had a long chat about various things, and that night Sankhashi Siddhar taught me a lot of things about the Tamil Siddhars, the South Indian system of Shiva Yoga. It's called Tamil Siddhars, belong to the Shaivite order of the South. And he also described to me this great book called Tirumantiram, which was written by a great sage called Tirumular. He said in the Tirumantiram you can find the complete A to Z technique and theory of the Kundalini Yoga and the chanting of what is called the Shiva Panchakshara, which is Panchakshara because it is Na, Ma, Shiva, Ya, 5 letters. You add Om, so it's Om Namah Shivaya. Because in Tamil there is no Sha, there is a Chi, so it is Namah Shivaya. So this Panchakshara can be used, each letter of the Panchakshara, this is all taught to me by Sankhashi Siddhar, fixed to any one of our centers, inner centers, which are called chakras, and chanted in various combinations to bring about various effects inside us and outside us. He taught me that, and he also told me the story of Tirumular. He said Tirumular was actually a disciple of Agastya, the great sage Agastya. So since Agastya had come down to the south and not come back for a long time, Tirumular decided to come from the Himalayas searching for Agastya. So as he was coming, somewhere in the south of Tamil Nadu, he came across a sight which made him very sad. A shepherd, which means people who take shepherds for sheep for grazing, had died. And there were lots of goats standing around, feeling very unhappy, not crying like human beings, but crying. So this great yogi felt very sorry for them and wanting to make them happy, he decided to leave his body under a hollow tree and get into the body of this dead shepherd so that the sheep will be happy for a while. Now this activity in yoga is called, in Tamil, what you call Siddha Yoga, it's called Parakaya Pravesha, which means entering somebody else's body. So I will explain this to you further when we talk again. So then after the Panch Kedars, the next destination, after the 4 Kedars, the next destination of course was Kedarnath, which is the most important of the Kedars. So we passed through Mad Maheshwar, took a cross country route as usual, as Babaji was accustomed to, and arrived, entered the road to Kedarnath through Gupta Kashi. Gupta Kashi, there is a small temple of Kashi Vishwanath, which is hidden away, so it's called Gupta Kashi, hidden Kashi. And then from there we took 3 days walking through the villages to reach Kedarnath. As soon as we entered Kedarnath, now this going to Kedarnath is something very, very fascinating, because you keep walking once you reach Gauri Kund. Gauri Kund is the last stop for buses and vehicles. From Gauri Kund you have to walk for 14 kilometers even today. If you can't walk, you might go on a khachar, which is a mare, or carried by these Nepalese boys on a basket or on a dholi. But the best thing is to walk. If you are healthy, then it is best to walk. So from Gauri Kund, 14 kilometer walk. Those days when I was young, and was walking with Babaji. It started from Gaurikund in the morning at around 4:30, and I think by 10:30 I was in Kedarnath. Now it's not possible to do so fast. Anyway, soon as we reached Kedarnath, Babaji said, first we go to the temple and do pranams and then go to the place where we reside. So he took me. Now the site of Kedarnath is so fascinating. When you walk and as you keep climbing, you don't see any snow-clad mountains except in the distance, far away. Then when you come to Rambara and take a left turn, suddenly you see before you this huge peaks full of ice shining. It's as if Shiva is standing before you in the form of a huge ice linga. It strikes everybody because suddenly you are face to face with a mountain or a range of mountains completely covered with ice and shining like silver. So this is my first vision of Kedar. So I went with Babaji, entered Kedarnath, the town of Kedarnath, the temple of Kedarnath, which is a Shiva temple. It's right on the foot of the Kedar range, the Kedar mountains, very close, and it becomes extremely cold there because first of all you are about 14,000 feet above sea level. Secondly, you are surrounded on all sides by ice-clad mountains, and you are so close. The temple itself is right there on the foothills of the mountains. So first we went there, and it was open. There was not much rush, so we went there. I think we were going there towards the end of the season when it's so cold that mostly pilgrims don't come. Went there, bow down, took a pradakshina of the temple, and then Babaji said that now we will go up to the cave and stay there. As you enter the way that goes to the temple and cross the river on the bridge, if you look towards the left side on the top, far away you will see even today a few small kutirs. 2 years ago when we went to Kedarnath, I sent some of young boys to go up, and some not so young also joined them, to go up and look at the kutirs. And they said they are still existing, and there is still a beautiful garden behind the kutirs, but you can't make out from below. You have to go up. So right up there on the left side there was a small kutir which was Babaji always lived there, he said, whenever he went to Kedarnath. He says that he has lived there with Sri Guru Babaji during the days when he himself was doing tapasya, which may be 100 years ago, I can't reckon. Anyway, so we went there to the cave, and there was an assistant of a trader, a Marwadi trader, who used to come there every year, provide blankets to the sadhus and provide provisions to the Kali Kambliwala Dharamshala, where sadhus can stay freely and they are given food. So this Marwadi gentleman had sent an assistant who used to bring food to the cave all the way up. So when we reached there was food brought for me, so I had food, and then Babaji told me that he would stay one more day and that he was going to Gomukh, so he had to leave and I have to stay there alone. Then he told me, Sri Guru Babaji, which is our Parama Guru, does want some things to be done with my nervous system and my brain to accelerate the movement towards spiritual consciousness. So he said that you stay here for some time. After a while, 3 people will come and take you to some place where you will have to undergo certain procedures which will help you to move forward faster than you can normally. So I never said no to anything that Babaji said, so I agreed. So after Babaji left, one morning while I was meditating, 3 men entered the cave. I could not actually see their complete faces. I only know that they were wearing some kind of a cloth which came up to their knees, and they were bare-bodied up. They were very fair, almost white and pale, as if they were suffering from anemia. And on their face there was a cloth tied like the surgeons do in operation theatres. Same thing that surgeons tie in operation theatres. Like the Jain sadhus, the Jains of the Svetambara sect and the Digambara sect, they tie a cloth. So they came. Babaji had given me a code word, a code sentence, which I was supposed to tell them, and they were supposed to reply to me in a particular manner. He said if they didn't, then I was not supposed to go with them. He said, in this field, in this particular path that we are taking, there is always the danger of negative forces taking over. So he said, this is the right time for negative forces to catch you. So unless and until they clear the code with you, you are not supposed to go with them. So when they came and said, mumbled, Sri Guru Babaji has asked us to take you there, I used the code. They replied exactly as Babaji told me, so I agreed to go with them. So the first thing they did was, they took a black cloth and blindfolded me. And then we went. Since they had blindfolded me, I don't know where they were taking me, but we went quite a distance. It must have taken an hour or so. And then I felt that we were descending some steps. So we got down the steps, and then I felt that we were going through a corridor. Because hardly any air was there. It was kind of, and cold. And then they took off the blindfold. When they took off the blindfold, I found that we were somewhere in a cave. I saw the entrance from which we could have come, and there was a dhuni burning there at one end. And these 3 people asked me to lie down on a plank of wood which was kept in the middle of the room. So I lay down. Then there was a 4th man sitting there who said, breathe in and breathe out and fix your attention on the breath. So I did that for some time, and I felt very calm and quiet and settled and tranquil. Then they took a bowl from somewhere, and inside that was some green colored liquid which I was supposed to drink. It was so bitter, but I forced myself to drink the whole thing. As soon as I had drunk that, in about half a minute, there was such terrible pain in my stomach and my neck and my body, and the body started to have almost convulsions, fits. Now while this was going on, near my head I saw them with a small round thing, metallic looking thing, which they opened, and from there they took out 2 wires with some kind of contacts in it, and put them inside my head. I was not unconscious, I could feel all that. One here and one somewhere here, pressed it inside, said, close your eyes. So I closed my eyes. Slowly that pain and everything went off. The body stopped the jerky movement like a fit. And then I thought I was kind of floating, the floating feeling, and that floating feeling increased and it moved towards the feet, and then with one small jerk I suddenly found that I was looking at the room. Even though I thought the eyes were closed, I was actually looking at the room, and I saw all these people sitting around, 4 of them, that machine there, and then I was surprised to see me lying there. My body was also lying on that plank, and I realized that probably I have come out of my body and I was looking down at the whole scene. My body was lying as if it was dead, straight, pale, no movement, nothing. I wandered about a bit here and there. And then I looked at these people with the masks who were sitting around, and they looked at me. So I knew that they could see me as I could see them, and they nodded their heads. After a while I thought, aha, this is so wonderful, I don't want to go back in there. So I started moving out of the cave. From outside the cave I could see the temple, very beautiful, standing there. I said, this is wonderful, I hope that they cut the connection and I am free forever. The moment I thought about that, there was a horrible jerk, and it was like, and I felt like I was falling from a great height. I don't know if anyone has experienced this. When you are dreaming sometimes, the deep dream, deep sleep, sometimes you feel that you are falling from from height down suddenly in the dream. It was like that. So now I think it happens because every human being at night probably leaves his body and moves around in his subtle body, which is the Shushma Sharira, travels around. But I think the problem is that when you come back, the brain has not been trained to remember the experiences. So the experiences that you have, they're kind of mixed up with other thoughts and jumbled up, and this is what you think is a dream. So some people get up from the dream and say, oh, I dreamt that I was in a beautiful place. And what happened? Then I came back and everything vanished. Now, if you want to remember these experiences, the best thing to do is, as soon as you wake up in the morning, while memory is still there a little bit, take down a paper and jot down everything. Because within an hour, the whole thing will be forgotten. But yogis are trained to go consciously out of their bodies, remain out and come back when they want, and remember everything that happened during that experience. What I am trying to say is, every human being goes through this, but they don't remember enough in a proper manner to understand that this has happened. Sometimes by mistake, when they wake up suddenly, that's when you feel you are falling from a height. It's coming back to the body. Actually, the same way, I also felt a very strong tug, and I was back in the system. When I woke up, I had a terrible headache. So the person sitting there put his hand on my head and massaged a little bit until I became somewhat normal. But then they said I could stand up, but when I stood up, I was feeling dizzy and about to fall. Things weren't in their proper place. The consciousness was not fixed properly. So they said, close your eyes and sit down cross-legged. Close my eyes, and then I felt a kind of a floating sensation like sitting in an aeroplane. And then when I opened my eyes, I was back in our little kutir. After that, I stayed in that kutir for at least 4 or 5 days, for 3 weeks actually, till Babaji came back from Gomukh. Now during these 3 weeks, every night I used to lie down, close my eyes and think of what happened the previous day, and found that I could very easily float out of my body and move around. Now the thing is, it is not such a difficult thing. People don't do it or cannot do it, mostly because they don't believe in it first. Belief is important. If you don't believe in something, nothing will work. First, they don't believe that a Shushma Sharira or a subtle body exists. So, it rules out the capacity for most people. Now, suppose you believe, then there is fear that if I go, how will I come back? Will I be dead forever? The fact is, first fear, faith, whether it is there, you cannot do anything. You have to believe. The other, you see, like any other thing in the world, unless you believe you can do it, you cannot do it. This not only applies to this, it applies to everything on earth. If I start any career or any life or any art or any science saying, I don't think I can do it, it will not work. You have to believe, yes, it will work. And then even with repeated failures, it's going to work because the mind has tremendous capacities which are unleashed the moment you have faith. I have discussed this with Babaji many times. I must tell you this example which Babaji told me. He said, you imagine a man walking on the street. He's a very weak looking man. If you look at him, you don't even think that he is going to walk another few feet. He's so tired, old, weak, wearing torn clothes, a beggar walking on the street. And he says, you think that any next step he might fall down and die. He said, in that condition, suppose a car or a vehicle or a bus or something comes very close to him and stops with screeching brakes and horns and all that. What will normally happen to this person? Normally, probably he would have jumped across the road, which is not possible even for a long jump champion, because he has to save his life. And his conscious mind, which says, I am weak, I am powerless, I cannot do, does not exist at that time, because something else is taken charge from here, which says this body has to be saved instantly. So, he is not conditioning himself by imagining that he cannot do it. Because under the present circumstances, if he imagines, I am an old man, I am a weak man, I am a sick man, he cannot do it. So, for some reason, for survival of the body, which is a built-in system, suddenly the adrenal gland in the human body pumps hormones into the system, into the bloodstream, and there is a sudden action, which is a defensive action. To be free of death, he jumps. This would not have been possible if he had conditioned his mind, his conscious mind, to think, oh, I cannot do it, I am a weak man. It happens because his conscious mind is not thinking at that moment. The action comes from beyond thought. Faith is also something like that. It works outside our imagination. It's beyond our control. It comes from somewhere else. Why I am saying this is one of the reasons why people are not able to come out of their heavy clay, weight laden body, is because they don't believe in it. If you believe in it, one, and two, if you come out, if you learn how to remember what you experience, because most often, even if you do it, when you come back, the brain rubs off all the memory of it. If you learn techniques or methods by which you can remember your experiences, and three, if you are guided by someone in the right technique of doing it, I am telling you the discussion I had with Babaji, not as if I am saying this, then it is possible, I think, for most human beings, there may be some exceptions, to be able to do it sometime or the other, if not always. For me, when I lived in that cave after this experience, for 4 or 5 days, no, for 3 weeks before Babaji came back, I used to lie down and I worked out myself a certain way of doing it smoothly without fear. I imagined that on the top of the roof there was a big rope hanging, thick rope tied down. And I closed my eyes and I used to imagine that I am trying to catch the rope and climb up and go to the top of the roof. First the right hand, You actually have to feel the rope in your hand. Right, right, left, till you are when you are nearly in your mind, imagination, touching the roof, you suddenly realize that you are looking down and there is a body lying there. Now, first time you see your body, you will be surprised because it doesn't look as you think it looks. We always have an image about our body, and that image is based on photographs or what we see in the mirror. But how another person is looking at you may be completely different. So, for the first time when you look at your body as if somebody else is looking at it, for a second you will wonder, oh, is this me? Take some time to actually recognize and find out. Anyway, so for the next 3 weeks in the kutir, I spent doing all these activities, trying to every night come out, float around. In fact, once I think I went very far, and there I saw on the way to Gomukh, in a place for Bhojbasa which I had never visited in my life before. Afterwards I went with Babaji and saw it. I saw Babaji sitting in one cave and meditating. I had never seen Babaji meditating before. He always kept his eyes open, but there I saw him close his eyes and meditate. It is very interesting because when your subtle body goes somewhere, nobody can see you. You can see somebody, but they cannot see you. You can hear, you can see, you can smell, but you cannot feel. I mean, if you cannot bring a watch or something from somewhere, this is not possible, because if you catch something, your fingers will go through it. You cannot, but you can smell, you can see, and you can hear. 3 things happen. So, normally the subtle body, which is called Shushma Sharira, it's also called in yogic terminology Linga Sharira. About this also in the Tirumantiram of Tirumular, it has been beautifully described about how this happens. Now, when so I saw Babaji sitting with closed eyes and meditating. I just stood there and in my subtle body did pranams, and I was standing there and wondering, he's meditating. Suddenly he opened his eyes and he said, what are you doing here? Go back. This is amazing because nobody can see you. So immediately I was tucked back and I found myself back in that body. The thing is, when you come back, you feel disgusted because it's so difficult to carry this around. It's like a dead weight actually, and that is like flying like a butterfly above on the sky. So after that, after 3 weeks, Babaji came back and together we went to Gomukh. We go to Gomukh, we came back to Rishikesh. I think about this. But before that, I want to complete my story about Tirumular, which I stopped halfway last time. Now, so this young yogi who came in search of Agastya, he came to the south and he found these goats and sheep crying because the shepherd was lying dead. Tirumular, feeling so sad, got into the shepherd's body, leaving his body in the hollow trunk of a tree, and got up. So the sheep were very happy. So he wandered around with the sheep for some time, grazing them. By the time some villager in the forest found a body lying under the hollow of the tree and burnt it. They thought it is a dead body, is lying there, it will get. So after 2 days that body was burnt. So Tirumular could not get back into his original body. He continued to occupy the body of the shepherd. Now in Tamil, Tirumular means the shepherd, one who looks after sheep. When he came back home, his wife saw that she could not recognize his same body. So she thought her husband has come back. But the husband, after sitting down, started spouting Tamil poetry, which is the Tirumantiram. And as she started singing the poems, she was shocked to see the wife. How can my husband sing such beautiful Tamil poems? That is the Tirumantiram that we have today. And I would suggest anyone who is interested in the spiritual field to read and understand the Tirumantiram, which is one of the most important spiritual texts, I must say, which have been written in the world. It contains everything about spiritual practice, about yoga, about Kundalini, about the chakras, about how yogis attain samadhi, what is the situation, what is the position in which they should sit when they leave their body, the entire, including Linga Sharira, Shushma Sharira, there is nothing that has not been discussed. Fortunately for us, there is a beautiful English translation of the Tirumantiram available now, I think with the Ramakrishna Mission or with the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, one of these I have seen it. It's a very important textbook that should be read, and now the English reading public can read it. Those who know Tamil need not worry because the originals are available as it is without any interpretation whatsoever. So now then after Kedar, we walked for many days. I think we didn't go back to Gomukh. We came from Kedar, passing through the different prayags, stopping near the river and under the trees, in caves, in little ashrams. And I think in about 16 days, 20 days, we were back in Rishikesh. This time, instead of staying at Charanapaduka in Badri anyway, this time in Rishikesh, we stayed at the cave of Mauni Baba. Now the Mauni Baba's cave, as I told you earlier, is situated on the way to the Nilkant Parvat on the other side of the Ganga. Most of the ashrams are all on this side. Now if you cross the Ganga from the Shivananda ashram side, keep walking along the sides of the Ganga on the other side, as you go along, you will come across many ashramas, even today. And I think there was one ashram at the end of it, Vedaniketan. Yeah. You pass through Vedaniketan and then continue to walk. You will find something not so nice to smell, the sewage plant, and then further up as you go near the ghats of the Ganga, there is a road turning on to the left. If you turn to the left, on the right side, there are these abandoned concrete caves, artificial caves made of concrete, which were once upon a time air conditioned. These were the air conditioned caves made by Maharshi Mahesh Yogi of transcendental meditation fame, for the Beatles to come and live when they came to see him. The Beatles had become his disciples and they landed in a helicopter somewhere near Rishikesh, and they were given these air conditioned caves to live in. You pass the air condition, now there is no air condition, there is no caves, the forest department has taken away the whole place. You go further up and then turn to the right, keep walking, and then turn left and keep walking, and about an hour and a half probably you will reach Nilkant. Now before reaching Nilkant, Nilkant is on the top, down you will find the cave of Mauni Baba. Now it has 3 layers of caves. One is the first cave, then inside that there is another, then if you bend and go inside there is a third one, and it is still there. Now also one can go and stay. Not stay, you can go and see. So Mauni Baba was a great Naga sadhu who used to live there. And whenever Maheshwarnath Babaji, my guru, went there, this Naga Baba used to shift and go to Nilkant proper, the top of the mountain, and stay there in his kutia, allowing Babaji to stay here, and there would be a brahmachari who would be looking after our needs. So this time I was also there. So I met Mohini Baba, and he was also very surprised that Babaji had found a disciple, Shishya. And later on, Maheshwarnath Babaji told me that Mohini Baba had met Sri Guru Babaji at Nilkant many years ago. So he knew who he was and what. Anyway, so we stayed at that cave, and during the day I was allowed to wander around whenever I wanted, come to the other side, walk around and go back when I wanted. Meditation times were fixed, I had to be there, and I learned living there with Babaji. Many discussions and knowledge was imparted to me on the Upanishads, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, Ramayana, other texts of the Nath Panth like the Goraksha Shataka, the Satchakra Nirupana, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Garanda Samhita, and so on, and the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Apart from the great Buddhist text written by Nagarjuna called Prajna Paramita. All these I studied there living with Babaji in Mohini Baba's cave, and it was a wonderful period of time for me because I was understanding things which I couldn't even have dreamt of even existed. Then one day, I used to come out, wash my clothes in the river and go back. So one day while I was standing on this side, I saw a young lady, a young girl sitting there on the rock, who was definitely of foreign origin because her hair was not black, it was brown, and she was sitting there. She was wearing a tulsi mala in her neck. She was wearing a pale sari, and she was sitting there. Most of the time I found her every now and then vomiting near the rocks on the banks of the river. So I went to her and asked her if some food poisoning or what is wrong with you. She said, no, it's not food poisoning. So what is that? She said, I have been coming here to Rishikesh for many years. I am very fond of the river Ganga, and I am also very fond of the Himalayas. In Rishikesh, I have been to Badri, Kedar and all that. But I have no interest in Hinduism or religion or meditation or anything of the kind. I just love the place, so I like to come. She said, I tried to go to one or two ashrams, but I am not interested. They tried to convert me. But I love the Himalayas. I love the Ganges, the Ganga. I like the Himalayan mountains. So I said, but why are you vomiting? She said, because this is probably the 4th time that I am coming here. But now the doctor in the US has diagnosed that I have cancer of the intestines, and he has given me 3 months. He says that you will not last beyond 3 months. So I decided that I should do what I love most before I die. So I have come here to enjoy what I love most, which is the river and Rishikesh. So I am here. And now she said, I have come to a stage where even if I drink water, it comes out. I cannot even drink water. I could make out when she explained, because she was very thin and very weak and pale. It struck me that perhaps Babaji might help, but I couldn't take somebody there directly and go to him without his permission. So I said, you just wait here, I will come back. I made a run from there. Normally it takes about 1.5 hours to reach Mohini Baba's cave. I must have reached in about 30 minutes maybe. I ran fast and I reached there, and Babaji was sitting there, just there outside as if waiting for me. So I started. I said, Babaji, there is this lady there. So he said, which lady? So what? You now started looking at lady. I said, Babaji, there is a it's foreigner ladies, is it? I said, Babaji, aisa nahi hai. It's not like that. There is a sick lady there. So he said, are you a doctor or am I a doctor? I said, so why this interest on sick ladies? I said, Babaji, she's suffering, she's been vomiting. He looked at me for some time and he said, I said, I wanted you to see her. Don't do anything. I don't know what you want to do or you don't want to do, but I just want you to see her. Maybe before she dies. Doctor says she'll last only for 3 months. Maybe your blessings before she dies would be of use to her. He thought for some time and he said, ठीक है, लेके आओ. All right, bring her. He said. So I again made a run, maybe the same time, excited because I have succeeded to take this girl there. So I said, come with me. She said, after some time, I can't run with you, I can only walk. So slowly she walked, I went with her. Must have taken around 2.5 hours or so for us to reach. I thought now this is finished because Babaji would have gone somewhere or God knows what he is doing. He'd say, where were you? But he was again like before waiting there as if he was waiting for us. Took her and made her sit down. Babaji said, baitho, baitho. Then I said, Babaji, this girl, I don't want to use names. In my autobiography I have mentioned this story, but I have used a pseudonym, not the real name, Jenny. So he said she is very ill, she has cancer of the intestines, and the doctor in the US has said that she will not live for more than. So I wanted to tell him, actually I didn't tell him, I said, Babaji, I will. She started in English and I started translating in Hindi. So after 1 minute, Babaji said, chup raho. Oh, he kept quiet because I thought he didn't know English, and after even all these experiences, I thought somebody should translate for him. He said, chup raho. So I kept quiet. So he listened. Yeah, he kept shaking his head, closed his eyes. So she said that I had cancer. The doctors have said that I will be dead in 3 months, and there's nothing I can do about it. I don't know why I came. He called me, brought me here. But she addressed him as Master. So after some time he looked at her and she said, so I will be dead in 3 months. And then he talked back to her in English, and that too in the same accent in which she was talking. And I can't imitate that accent. And he said to her, oh, so you are going to die? Yes, Master, she said. Yes, he said, I am also going to die. He is also going to die. Everybody is going to die at some point or the other. He was not laughing or smiling, but there was some peculiar expression, and he said it very softly. He said, you are saying you are going to die, I am going to die, he is going to die, everybody is going to die at some point. Then he said, at least you think you know when you are going to die. Most people don't know when they are going to die. So relax. If you are going to die, it's better to die peacefully. And the moment he said this, I was watching this girl and her face, facial expression completely changed. She looked, suddenly there was an expression of peace coming into her mind, as if she had accepted it completely. So he said, so if you are going to go in peace, I am with you. And then he said, he taught her some simple breathing exercise to do and something to chant, which is Om. And he said, so go home do this exercise and chant Om and be peaceful and think of me. Okay? She said, okay, Master. And then he said, take her back and leave her where she came from. So I took her, and after 2 days, she had booked her ticket already to go back, so after 2 days she went away. Went to Delhi, and from there I think she must have flown. I lost complete touch with her, because in those days I neither had a telephone number nor an address on which to write. It completely, but I had one, she said, where can I contact you? I said, care of Shivananda Nagar post office. If you write, perhaps I will get the letter, and write Shiv Prasad, Brahmachari Shiv Prasad. She said, all right. Because this name Madhukarnath, which Babaji had given me, was supposed to be then very confidential, only between him and me. So I gave her Shiv Prasad, which is the name I got in Haridwar. Fine. And she went away. I lost complete touch with her. 2-3 years passed. I think 3 or more. Meanwhile, I think Babaji, 85, Babaji went off after that. I went to Rishikesh. As usual, I used to go wander around Rishikesh for a month or 2 and come back, whatever I was doing, working, not working. So with my backpack I went, and I was walking near Muniki Jadi in Rishikesh. And then I thought somebody crossed and went on the other side. It looked so much like Jenny, but little well built. So could be a relative. I don't know anything about her. So I went, stood, and then she went and stood, and she called me, and Shiv Prasad, she said, are you? I said, yes. Are you Jenny? She said, yes. I said, what happened to you? I thought she was dead in 3 months. She said, can we go and sit and have a cup of tea or coffee somewhere? I'll explain to you. I said, all right. So we went and sat in one of those little, there are many shops out there. And I said, what happened to you? She said that she went back. She went back home. She said, I was so peaceful. I felt that I am perfectly all right. I am going to die, so let me die in peace. And then slowly, one day I drank water and I didn't vomit. So I drank coffee and I didn't vomit. Then I had food and I didn't vomit. So I went back to the doctor and said, please have a checkup. So he checked up and said, it has gone. There is no cancer. She said, but how is this possible? You gave me 3 months. He said, sometimes these things happen. Nobody can say. Certain diseases go off by themselves. There is some natural process. He said, he gave me a bag load of shit. This is exactly what she told me, but I was fine. And she was fine. So she said, I thought, let me go back to Rishikesh now and enjoy. And believe me, how did I see you? She said, this is all arranged. She said, where can we see the master? I said, go on. So she said, this is funny that I should see you. I said, yeah. So we spent some time together, and then she went back. And again, completely out of my system. But this time, I could give her some address where she could write a letter to me. So I gave her address in Chennai where I was staying in my house. And then after some time, 1 year or so, 1.5 years, I got a letter, but it was not from her. It was from her, but the letter was from address was for her brother. I didn't know her brother, so I thought it's some American has written me a letter. So when I opened it, there was a letter inside that written by her. And the letter was very strange. The letter said that I am perfectly fine and clear now. I went to sleep yesterday night and I dreamt of the Master. So he came in the dream and he asked me, "Are you okay now?" I said, "I am okay." "You are cured?" I said, "I am cured." He said, "You are perfectly all right, at peace?" I said, "I am perfectly all right, at peace." Then he said, "It's time to go home now," and went away. So I don't understand the import of this. I am writing this letter, waking up at midnight, I am writing this letter to you. What does he mean by going home? All the best and all, signed and kept. And her brother had found this letter, because the next morning she never woke up. So her brother found this letter near her bed, in which the address was written. So he posted it to me, because in that my original name was written, because when I met her again in Rishikesh, I told her, "I don't want to make a fool of you, this is my real name." It came to me. I read it. Her brother said, "It's a covering note, I am sending this to you because she had told me that you are a good friend of hers," and things like that. So this is the story of Babaji's and Jenny, which was a very moving experience for me also. Now, during this time when I was staying in the cave, Mauni Baba's cave, one day we had a discussion. Actually, we had come to Rishikesh on this side. We were walking down on the other side of the river. The discussion was, Babaji said, "In the future at some point you will teach Kriya Yoga to people." I said, "If you want to. I don't want to do anything of that kind, but if you want me to do it, I will do it." I said, "Yes." Then he said, "You have to choose persons very carefully." I said, "In what way?" So he gave me 20 points, 20 points on what are the qualifications that I should look for to initiate somebody into Kriya Yoga. I looked at the list and I told him, if I go by this list, I cannot initiate anybody into Kriya Yoga. I cannot do it. You will have to find somebody else, because I cannot do, because most of the people we know, we see, they fall into these categories which you have written. So if you say they are not qualified to learn Kriya, then whom should we teach Kriya? I said, I cannot teach Kriya because I can't look for somebody without these. He said, no, it is possible. So we kept arguing and talking about it. Oh, okay, he said, I'll cut 1 point. So still there are many. I said, none of these things are going to work. Few things, like if they are sincere, they would practice regularly, they will not harm others as much as possible, they will eat simple food, things like that, or they will be truthful, they won't steal from somebody. These things we can manage, but these things, they should not be married. How can you teach? Because most people are married, and there are many other lists. I can't describe the list to you, it's very big. He said no. He said, then okay, maybe I will find somebody else to teach Kriya Yoga. It's not possible. And we were discussing this matter, and we had come and turned near the corner of that air-conditioned caves which I mentioned, where there is a lot of greenery there, forest. So, as soon as we reached there, I saw somebody coming, turning the corner and appearing before me. I looked at this person, and as soon as I saw him, he also saw him, and immediately he fell flat and did what is called Shashtanga Pranam. I have never seen Sri Guru Babaji Maheshwar Nathji bow down or do pranams to anybody. So when he did that flat, like throwing a tree down, I knew that Sri Guru Babaji. I also kind of thought it must be his Guru. It is our Paramaguru Sri. So I also prostrated. Now I am saying this because it is very important, because in this life, that was the first time that I saw Sri Guru Babaji himself for a few minutes. After that I saw him only twice this life, that too for a few minutes. So then we got up. Babaji, he smiled. I cannot tell you how wonderful a person can look. It cannot be a human being like that. He smiled, and then he put his hand on my shoulders like an old friend, and I was quite thrilled. And then he says to Maheshwarnath Babaji, why don't you listen to what this boy says? Simplify it. How can you have such conditions? Nobody will learn Kriya then. So Babaji smiled and said, as you say, whatever you say. And he looked at me. I looked at him with that grin on my face as if I have won. And then he just walked past us and went and turned the corner. Now I had this irresistible desire to run after him and hold his feet or something. But Maheshwarnath Babaji held my hand and he said, don't go, you won't find him anyway, so don't go, ruko. So I stood still. After 5 minutes or so, I really got this temptation to go and peep. I looked, there was nobody there. So that was my first meeting in this life with Sri Guru Babaji for maybe 5 minutes or maximum 10 minutes. After that I met him only twice. One when Maheshwarnath Babaji passed away near Mauni Baba's cave, when he attained Samadhi. And the next time, many years later, when I went to Kailash with a group of people, I had this, I can't say it is a physical thing, it was more like a vision of Sri Guru Babaji. So this is what it is. And now, having said all this, that does not mean that Sri Guru Babaji is someone who is inaccessible. If someone is sincere and would very much long or crave to see him, I personally believe that it is possible that he would bestow his grace by coming into such a person's presence. But sincerity is of utmost importance. One has to be sincere, one has to ask for it, and one has to lead a life which does not create harm to other living beings, especially human beings, who are among the most evolved of living beings on this earth. Regarding Kriya Yoga, when Kriya Yoga is given, since we are on that subject, it is not as if Kriya Yoga is practiced to have a vision of Sri Guru Babaji. This is a completely wrong concept. Kriya Yoga is practiced so that one may purify one's mind, purify one's system, body and mind, make your consciousness subtler and subtler, lift it from the gross to the subtle level, and maybe after many lives, or maybe in this life, depending upon various factors, reach perfection, which in yogic terms is called Kaivalya. Kriya Yoga is not practiced to have a vision of Sri Guru Babaji. See whether you have a vision or see Sri Guru Babaji depends on other factors. It does not depend on this. When you take Kriya, it is your bounden duty to practice it regularly, follow instructions from the teacher who has given you, and evolve in your spiritual journey till you touch that center in our inner heart, which is connected in some way to the higher intelligence, which is called God. This is the purpose of Kriya, and it is not a complicated process. It is not a process also which is done in the smashan or somewhere in a hidden place. It is simply done in private, because those who have not learned Kriya do not practice it and commit mistakes. So, some little bit of privacy is essential for the practice of yoga, of Kriya Yoga. It consists of simple exercises to raise our consciousness from the lower level to higher and subtler levels, so that life becomes multidimensional and one is able to access dimensions which are normally not possible for the rational mind, ordinary mind, or the brain to contact or understand or realize. This is the essence and meaning of Kriya Yoga.